Well, Klaus Thymann joins us now from Tulum in Mexico to discuss those expeditions and the climate crisis. Thank you so much for joining us, Klaus. Now, you've travelled extensively across the globe, really trying to document this ice melt phenomenon that's happening with the world's glaciers. Can you tell us what sparked your interest in that specifically, and what have you found?
Yeah. It started off with Project Pressure is an organization trying to communicate around climate change. And 10 years ago, there was the climate deniers were called skeptics. So we were looking for a way to communicate around climate change in a way that was scientifically accurate, but also something everybody could understand. And glacier recession is directly linked to global heating. And as such, they are also epic landscapes, and that's why we decided to look at glaciers globally, because climate change is a global phenomenon. Is global in essence. So that's how it all started.
Tell us more about your trips to Africa's Rwenzori Mountains. How has that landscape changed, and what was so surprising about what you found most recently?
So I went to the Rwenzori Mountains in Uganda. It's bordering Congo or DRC. And I went there in 2012. At that point, nobody had really been there from the Congo side for at least 70 years. So at that point, it was just to find out, are there any glaciers there or not? It's an area that's not too interested for the nations that have satellites. So there was very little information to gather. So the first expedition in 2012 was really to find out, are there any glaciers left? And there was. However, looking at vegetation and historic glacier terminus that they outlined the front, we could see that they were receding rapidly. And I went back in 2020 to see what had happened since. And it's not good from a glacial point of view. The glaciers had receded, and on one of the three mountaintops in the Rwenzori, they had disappeared, not altogether in the sense that there's no ice, but it doesn't qualify as a glacier anymore. So it has lost one of its glaciers on Mount Speak.
And these expeditions you conduct are part of the charity that you founded in 2008 called Project Pressure. And basically you aim to visualize the climate crisis by capturing images of glaciers and other such things that really illustrate how the world is heating up. When you work with climate scientists as well, have they told you that these losses are reversible?
No, unfortunately not. I mean, for sure, if we look at things in a geological perspective, of course it's reversible. But if we look at it from a carbon budget perspective and how long carbon stays in the atmosphere, it's not going to happen anytime soon. Last time we had the particles, the amount of carbon we have in the atmosphere now, there was palm trees growing on the edge of Antarctica. But of course, there's a time lag between putting the carbon in the atmosphere and seeing the full effect. Yet somehow we are in a progression at a stage where we're seeing the first wave of climate destruction, and we have not seen the start yet. This is just the beginning, and it will get a lot worse before any correction we make will get better. There's a sort of naivety about the timescales. We reached the point of catastrophe a while ago, and things need to happen very, very drastically and very urgently. And unambitious targets of like 2050, 2060, it's way too late. I cannot urge enough how to understand the urgency of this, but as you can see from my work, we are working at a glacial pace. We are working at glacial speeds. So it's difficult to comprehend the urgency, but maybe looking at images in comparison and just 8 years apart. We've lost a glacier on one of Africa's mountains have lost its glacier. So maybe we can understand we're fiddling with geological time on human timescales. And that should hopefully drive home the message of urgent action.
The message does seem to be getting picked up by young people in particular. We're seeing literally millions of young people really galvanise behind the issue of the climate crisis thanks to activists like Greta Thunberg. How hopeful are you that governments and businesses are going to listen to young people who are calling for real action on climate change?
I think they pretend to listen, but when we see the action, it's not happening. And that's very unfortunate. I think we will see more and more, not aggressive, but the messaging, more and more frustration with the inaction of governments. And hopefully the private sector can pick up some of it. I think there's not just government action. I think government action has clearly failed, and it's failed for decades. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this conversation. If the various we have COP26 coming up in Glasgow later this year in the UK, and it's just been an epic string of failures. No inaction. But maybe these the public opinion can shift the needle in different ways. Hopefully, the private sector will do things. I think also consumers are voting with their money, and I think anyone who's not on board will just look like a fossil and be treated as such. So it's the last dot before midnight, and I want to be optimistic, but I also see some challenges in government not doing anything.
Okay, Klaus Thymann, we will have to leave it there. But as you say, we do have that UN Climate Summit happening in Glasgow later this year. We'll see if governments really heed that call to action. Thank you so much for joining us.